a minute. We're just seeing a flood of people coming on, so let's give ourselves one or two more minutes and we'll get started. Okay, welcome everybody to the Leaders in Housing Counseling call. Always good to get together with you. We have a pretty varied agenda today, so I want to have us dive in right away. Let's do a quick review of what the agenda is, and then we'll get to the topics. We're going to open with, we're going to be meeting with Jerry Mayer. Many of you know him, probably most of you know him. You probably get regular emails from him, but Jerry's the Director of the Office of Outreach and Capacity Building in the Office of Housing Counseling, longtime HUD veteran, and we're going to talk to him. We've been doing a lot of work about trying to figure out how to publicize housing counseling to the public at large. The great news is that the Secretary has embraced this strategy, and when he goes to visit the locations, has been visiting housing counseling agencies. We've gotten 3 now so far since September when we first talked with him about it. But they're talking about advancing, doing more things to help make this happen, and some of it is in terms of collecting stories of success stories of housing counseling. So Jerry will talk with us a little bit about that, how to do it, and the advantages of actually getting your stuff submitted and then promoted through the HUD world. That would be so looking forward to that. We're going to have our legislative update, and this will be a major portion of the call. As you know, the House and Senate have become much more Republican, and we really need to do a lot of good work in terms of building bridges here that we haven't had in the past. And Matthew has done a deep dive. We've been talking with many of our allies in the housing counseling world, and we have thought through a strategy which you all will be a key component to, so we'll spend some serious amount of time on that. One of the things we'll ask is for you to identify any people in the House and Senate that you have working relationships with, and we'll try to capture some of that during the call. We're going to do a quick review on this 97% LTV product that Fannie and Freddie have rolled out, and the role of housing counseling, and we're going to do some advocacy to make it more closely tied into counseling and have a little bit of policy stuff we need to think through, so we'll be interested in your input on that. And lastly, I didn't send this out on the note we sent out this morning to be prepared for, but in the settlements that have been negotiated most recently, there have been principal reduction components, and we are beginning to hear from people that the principal reduction has started to occur. We're actually seeing it in reports from the various lenders to the monitors, but I haven't been hearing in the field that these have actually happened. So what would be very helpful is if you have had principal reductions with Citi, Chase, or Bank of America, we'd love to capture that and find out who's getting it. And if nobody's getting them, we may have a similar problem to what we had in the past, which was that much of the principal reductions went to wealthier communities and more expensive houses. And we'll be advocating to try to get a better pipeline for counselors to be able to advocate for their clients to get these principal reductions. So this will be a component to all of that. Of course, and then we'll make a pitch for you to join NHRC in 2015, and we've already gotten a couple new memberships this year, so it's all going well. So let's dive into the agenda quickly. So Jerry, very glad that you are joining us today. Almost everybody probably knows Jerry by now as a leading figure in the housing counseling world, in the Office of Housing Counseling, and in communications, particularly with our industry. But we have done a lot of work to try to spread the word to the public about housing counseling and the ideas about how HUD might be able to do that. And so HUD is coming back with some concrete ideas of things we might do that might help them in doing that. So Jerry.
All right. Well, good morning, Bruce, and thank you, everyone, for this opportunity to talk to the leaders in housing counseling. We really appreciate the opportunity to reach out to you all. As Bruce said, recently we've seen a great deal of interest in housing counseling on the national level. HUD's Office of Housing Counseling is often called upon on very short notice to provide to HUD's leadership and to our national leadership examples of community-based housing counseling agencies that they can visit and also highlight in speeches and policy initiatives. Very often a family that has successfully obtained counseling will also be highlighted. And we expect these opportunities to promote housing counseling will continue, and we would like to be prepared for future requests from our leadership for agencies and testimonials from families about the effectiveness of housing counseling. So what I'd like to do is invite agencies on this call to voluntarily provide to HUD on a regular basis testimonials from clients and articles about the good work that their agencies are doing in the community. And again, this request would be entirely voluntary, and we would really appreciate any assistance you could provide us. We would also like to utilize our Bridge newsletter more effectively to highlight the importance of housing counseling, and we anticipate using some of this material also in the Bridge. Now, some examples to think about could be a family that has utilized housing counseling to obtain their first home or prevent a foreclosure, or how counseling helped the family obtain or maintain rental housing, or perhaps a senior homeowner that used counseling to obtain a reverse mortgage. Homeless issues are also very important to us, and especially those affecting veterans. Those are all topics that we'd love to be able to highlight for you. So we're in the process of setting up a team to receive and process this material. And for now, what I'd like you to do is, if you want to participate, send me an email, and I know you all have my email address, expressing your interest, and then please check back home with your agency and identify some possible good candidates to highlight for an article. Those candidates would have to be comfortable with a certain amount of national attention. They would have to be vetted, of course, and this is especially so for really high-level usage. So you want to make sure about the folks that you want to write about. We anticipate being ready to receive material in about 2 weeks, and so if you have any questions in the interim, I would encourage you to email me, and we'll answer your questions as best as we can. Stories about any aspect of housing counseling could be utilized, really, and these are the things that we really want to receive from you, because this is a great opportunity to promote housing counseling, demonstrate how effective it is in helping American families improve their housing situations, and also, most importantly, highlight individual housing counseling agencies and the good work they're doing in their communities. And so in a nutshell, that's pretty much what our ask is here. And we really appreciate your participation and the opportunity to promote the good work that you're doing. So with that, Bruce, I'd like to turn it back to you, and maybe if there are any questions, respond to those.
Great, and I'll ask a couple questions to get us started, but people should feel free to pop things into the question box, and Matthew will monitor and do his great job at pulling these up. So let's see, is there a particular format that we need to use?
Word format or an email is perfectly fine. We're only looking for a few paragraphs to help identify the good story and the family and get the ball rolling on an individual testimonial, and then we would circle back with the agency to flesh it out and obtain additional details.
And when you say vetting, what does that mean?
Well, obviously we're looking for families that are good examples of hardworking folks who are using housing counseling in order to better their economic situation. We want to be very careful that we're not utilizing anyone that might have a criminal background or some other issue that could reflect negatively on the program.
Sure. And so we're talking about cases where you'll use somebody's name, and is there some release that you need ahead of time or anything like that?
There may be, and we're going to circle back with our public affairs office to provide the format for that.
Okay, good. Do we have questions lining up?
Yeah, Jerry, if you could, and I'm going to type it into the chat box, but if you could just give everyone your email and also a request for your mailing address.
Okay. I'll give everyone a moment to get their pens ready. And my email address, if you don't have it already, is jerrold.h.mayer@hud.gov.
All right. And there is a request for your mailing address as well.
Mailing address.
So maybe what we could do is we'll do an email. Yeah, Matthew always does an email after this conference, and we'll include the mailing address in that email.
Okay, that'll be perfect.
Make it easy. I take it's on all your emails, so we can just cut and paste, but if it's not, shoot it our way.
And the other question is if folks can also submit photos along with stories.
Oh, we would love photos. Photos would be great.
Great.
All right.
That's all we have for questions for now.
Okay, good. So, I mean, I think the opportunity here is that you're doing two levels of things, one of which is you are promoting the housing counseling world and helping the public learn what we do. And this is something we've got to figure out how to do a lot more of, and we'll pay a lot of attention to this question in 2015. But HUD obviously has a leadership role in this, and getting our story out in different venues will be really helpful. And the second one, of course, is it promotes your work that you do in the field and your agency, and that's an advantage to all of us, and advantage to your organization in terms of getting recognition locally and hopefully, in some cases, nationally as well. And then, of course, there's the added benefit that there is some chance that you might be the agency that gets visited next time that the Secretary is doing a visit. Now, there's no guarantees here, guys. But we're just we'll all hope for the best. And we have to say, Jerry, I just want to. We are just thrilled that we had a terrific meeting with the Secretary in September, and this idea was on the list of promoting housing counseling, including it in speeches, and when he traveled to do visits to counseling agencies, and he's doing it. I mean, he's been to 3 as far as we know, and we've really appreciated that, and I think it makes the staff and clients thrilled when it happens, but it also really helps get the word out in a broader way.
We're very, very thankful for our Secretary and the interest that he's shown in housing counseling. It's really wonderful to see, and we expect he's going to continue.
Good, great.
I'll just jump in with there's a few more kind of questions, comments, and before that, I'll just add though that would also, these kinds of stories and things are extremely valuable for the advocacy work we're going to talk shortly about, working with the new Congress. So it would be wonderful as folks are gathering these stories, to share them with me as well, and we can make sure they get to the hands of the House members and the Senate offices, just so the policymakers also are well aware of what's happening in their districts. So then just to the couple questions, comments. The first is if you have any thoughts, Jerry, on sharing these stories through social media.
Yes, we also have a Facebook page, and HUD also has a Twitter account, and it's quite possible that some of these stories could show up in those electronic media as well.
And then the last question is if you have any thoughts about approaching local and national TV stations about PSAs on housing counseling.
That's something that we've thought about doing, and we would love to do that in partnership with agencies and local umbrella organizations. Very often we go and approach them on our own and don't get a lot of traction, and we think that if we were to do so in partnership, we might have a more effective outcome. So we're definitely interested in that sort of thing.
Great, thanks very much. That's all there are for questions for.
Well, thanks again, Jerry, and maybe we'll touch base with you in a couple months and just see if you're getting what you need and if you've got some thoughts about how to tighten the message and improve on what we're doing.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, everybody. With that, I'll sign off now.
Excellent. Okay, great.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks again, Jerry. And so let's move on to engaging with the new Congress. So, Matthew, this is your territory. What have you got for us?
All right. Thanks very much, Bruce. Yeah, so Bruce had mentioned that in light of the new Congress, and as everyone is well aware, the Republicans now controlling the House and the Senate, a big part of our focus for legislatively for the coming year is going to be on building relationships with Republican members. And we're especially going to focus on the House because it seems like that's where we really have more work to do in terms of building those relationships. And it's not to say that Democrats or the Senate are not important. They're still very important. And we really want to encourage everyone on the call to continue building relationships with all of the members, your House members in districts that are nearby yours, where you're seeing clients coming from their districts, and your members of the Senate as well. But our focus is going to be largely on House Republicans. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of the key committees and subcommittees. I'm going to just put on the screen all of the members, just kind of be aware if a member that you have a relationship with or who you're in their district, if they're on one of the key committees, that'll be important for you to kind of take note and let us know. And I'm just going to highlight some of the the most important folks on the key committees and subcommittees. So starting off, we have House Financial Services. So this committee is probably the most important, I would say, for us for the coming year, and the one that we're going to focus the most on in terms of trying to win over some support from Republicans. So, for example, they're the committee that, for HAWK, if we're one of our goals for 2015 will be to try to get Congress to reinstate HAWK. They're the House committee that would do that. They're the committee that would deal with, for example, they deal with FHA, FHFA. So they're really key to the work that we do. The chairman of that committee is Jeb Hensarling from Texas. He's returning as the chair. He's been the chair for some years now. He's a really conservative guy. And we have some work to do with him. Folks, I think we've talked about on the call, but Chairman Hensarling and Chairman Goodlate from the House Judiciary Committee sent a letter at the end of last year to the Justice Department, kind of raising some questions about housing counseling being included in some of the settlements, and really a lot of the language in there was they talked about counseling agencies as being really like activist organizations, as community organizing organizations. So there's some work that needs to be done in terms of building a better relationship with Chairman Hensarling. I think it's
It
important.
was negatively done, that this was a kind of a payoff to Obama allies or organization. So,
yeah, sorry if that wasn't clear. It was definitely, the tone was definitely negative. I think it's important for us to have realistic expectations as well as we're for Chairman Hensarling and just more generally. I mean, a lot of House Republicans are fairly conservative. With Chairman Hensarling, our goal isn't to win him as an ally. That's not going to happen. It's really more to educate him on what counseling organizations do day in and day out, introduce him to folks in his district that are doing that work, and really just try to soften him up a little, make him less hostile towards counseling. The tone of the letter definitely indicated that he has some hostility towards us as an industry. So that's Chairman Hensarling, but he's very important. For the Democrats, it's Maxine Waters. Folks, I think, know her. She's been in the House for quite a while and is a friend and ally. So someone we'll continue building a relationship with, but not someone that we need to be concerned with trying to win over. So moving on to the subcommittee that's most important for us is the Housing and Insurance Subcommittee. So on the screen here you see the Republicans. Just want to highlight here Blaine Luetkemeyer. I think I'm finally figured out how to say his name correctly. So he's the chairman of the subcommittee. His district is west of St. Louis. It's right of the western suburbs of St. Louis, and then it kind of makes its way west towards, I think it goes as far as like central Missouri. He's also a fairly conservative guy. The kind of good news with him is that there are either 2 or 3 agencies in his district, HUD-approved agencies in his district. It's unclear whether one is still around or not. And at least one of them, they have a very good relationship with him. So with him and with some of these other folks that you see here, the Republicans from House Financial Services, one of our priorities for really the first half of the year is going to be putting together events in the district. So we go to somewhere in Chairman Luetkemeyer's district, invite local agencies to be there, and just do a fairly big event with the goal, again, of introducing them to counseling, making sure that they understand what counseling is, what we do, and just it's really educational. And I mean, really, the idea is that if they better understand counseling, then they're going to have a better view of it and be more likely to introduce and pass legislation that benefits us. One other person that
I would just add that the punchline also is that if they understand that it's that their constituents benefit from housing counseling, that you're doing work in their district and it helps their constituents directly.
Absolutely, and especially in the House, but in the Senate as well. Bringing it back to the district or the state is the most important thing, and that's really what they care about. The one other person I just want to quickly highlight on here is Bob Dold, who this is his second term, although he was elected in 2010, then he lost in 2012. I'm sorry, was elected in elected in 10, lost in 12, re-elected in 14. So he's back again. He's in the northern suburbs of Chicago. It's a moderate district. He considers himself a moderate. I've just started kind of looking into all these folks, but he certainly seems like someone that we can talk with and have a chance of winning over as an ally. Our goal is to win over, say, 3 or 4 or 5 Republicans that we can count as allies. Right now, I think everyone knows we consider Charlie Dent a strong ally. We'd like to, see it by the end of the year, say 3 or 4 more folks that we view like Charlie Dent as strong allies that we can count on when there's legislation or appropriations happening that we can turn to and look for and get support from. So I'll just quickly now go to the Democrats on that committee. We got Emmanuel Cleaver is the ranking member. He's also from Missouri. He's Western Missouri, kind of, I think not the city of Kansas City, but I think just east of Kansas City. I think that's the only person I wanted to highlight on there. But Keith Ellison is a very progressive member from Minnesota. Michael Capuano from Massachusetts has also been supportive. We've worked with his office some in the past.
Al Green. Al Green's been very, very helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So folks, and yeah, just be taking note of who's on these committees, and if any of them are, if you're in their district or if you know them, and that'll be very helpful to know about. So moving on to House Appropriations, Hal Rogers is going to be the chair now from Mississippi, and Nita Lowy from, I believe she's the Bronx, is going to be the ranking member for the Democrats. Most important with appropriations, well, let's see. Yeah, the THUD subcommittee is obviously the most important, the one that we really care about. The new chair of the THUD subcommittee is Mario Diaz-Balart. He's from the Miami area. He, I think, considers himself kind of moderate to conservative. But obviously with Florida, they were very deeply impacted by the housing crisis. So we do think that he's someone that we can talk with and have a conversation with. He may be someone who's less inclined to wind down an FMC quite as quickly as other folks may have in mind. So he's someone that we'll definitely be working with going forward. Is there anything you want to add on any of those folks, Bruce?
No, I think, I mean, these are all territories where there's lots of housing counseling groups, and, hopefully you've got relationships with them, but even if you don't, we should be working with you to help figure out how you might establish some.
Absolutely. Moving on. So this is the Democrats. It's a little disheartening to see there are only 4 Democrats on the subcommittee. David Price is the ranking member. He's from North Carolina. His district includes Raleigh, Chapel Hill, Durham. And the Democrats on the THUD subcommittee have been strong supporters. And again, it doesn't mean that we neglect them and don't visit their offices and thank them for their support and, keep on making sure that we're working to maintain their support, but they're not a huge focus for us. It's going to be trying to win over support from folks that maybe aren't so supportive right now. All right, I think we're going to move on to the Senate now. So the Senate Banking Committee, I may have missed the slide with the Republicans. Maybe it's just out of order. There we go. So the chair is Thad Cochran from Mississippi. You see all the members on there. Susan Collins is still there, which we're very happy. There's a few new members. Shelley Moore Capito from West Virginia was in the House and was on the Financial Services Committee there, and is now in the Senate Banking Committee. The last 4 people are all first-term senators, so it'll be important to meet with them and make sure that we're educating them on housing counseling and carrying the same message, that the value of counseling. Some other people to flag on the committee are Mark Kirk from Illinois. He is up for re-election in 2016 in a pretty solidly blue state, and he leans towards being kind of more moderate than many Republicans. So he's someone that we think we can talk to. I think that's all I want to highlight on here for now. Bruce, do you have anything to add on?
You've got it.
All right. We'll go back now to Senate Banking, the Democrats. This is the Senate Banking Democrats are definitely the offices that we've, in addition to the appropriations offices, we've worked the most closely with, because we did so much last year around housing finance reform, and so we have the best relationships with folks from this committee. Sherrod Brown is going to be the ranking member. He's progressive and has been very helpful in the past and supportive of counseling. I would say the same is true of Jack Reed. Robert Menendez has been a huge supporter of counseling. He's the one who every year during the appropriations will send out a Dear Colleague letter asking people to sign on to support funding for counseling. Elizabeth Warren, Jeff Merkley, both progressive and have been strong supporters before. For the subcommittee, the relevant subcommittee is Housing, Transportation, and Community Development. I have not seen any announcement on who the membership of that is going to be, so we'll have to keep you posted on that. Let's see. This is the full sorry, the slides are a little out of order, but you'll see there just the Democrats for the full committee. And then the most important, obviously, is the THUD subcommittee. The good news is that even though we lost the Republicans won the Senate, Susan Collins is about as friendly of a chair as we could have on the committee that handles appropriation for housing counseling. I know, I'm not sure if they're on the call, but groups in Maine have a great relationship with her. We're definitely going to work with them in the coming months to make sure that we're doing events in the district, and she really has been a strong advocate. So for her, it's it's thanking her and just making sure that she knows we appreciate her support and working with her to continue that support. Unfortunately, Patty Murray took over as the ranking member on a different subcommittee. She had been a great ally, and she and Susan Collins had really worked very well together. But taking her place will be Jack Reed. He'll now be the ranking member. Again, he's from Rhode Island. He's progressive, and he's been supportive before. We have a good relationship with his office, so I think he'll be an ally for us in the appropriations process. I believe that's all I have for the committees. There are a few comments, but I don't think anything I need to. Just a suggestion to maybe have clients who may have the same views as the leaders write letters to the district leaders to help gain the support. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. That having your clients that have success stories, if they're willing to just you can tell them it'll take 5 minutes to go online to their the website and just submit a quick thing online saying, I got great help from this agency. This was the outcome, and I just want you to know that housing counseling is working and would appreciate your support of it. That's a great idea. And going back to Jerry's portion of the call, it would be great for us to gather stories that we can share with members as well. So as you're doing that, please do include me, and I'll make sure that it gets into the hands of your members, or I can work with you for you to get it directly to them. That's all I've got for now. Bruce, do you want to say anything else before? Do you want to talk about this? Or
So actually, a few things. Yeah. So the first is that we are working on a strategy with a number of the housing counseling groups that have large networks and a presence on the Hill and some lobbying capacity. We're interested in including everybody in each step of the way. We have this steering committee. It's not the right term, but we have a group of us who have gotten together to really kind of develop a coordinated strategy. So it's the National Council of La Raza, it's the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, it's Housing Preservation Foundation, it's Home Free USA, and we've talked about developing a strategy where we're identifying those players that we need to have a lead role with in the House and Senate, and that we need to, as Matthew refers to as educating, and really bring them up to speed about what exactly we do and what the value is for their constituency. That we do that initially with DC meetings with the goal of getting local in-district meetings with the member and local groups. So it's nice to have, Matthew or somebody else representing national groups in that meeting, but what will make it resonate, what will make it powerful, is if you have your local groups who work in their district in that meeting, and it'll be this opportunity to say, listen, we're in the district, we met you at such and such a time, we've counseled this many people, we have this many people who've come through NFMC that have been in your district. We're here to help your constituents, so let us know, and really kind of make it we're here to work with you, let's build a relationship, and let's see what we can do. And maybe you have an event that it could be at a housewarming, maybe it's just a sit down at your office, maybe it's a sit down at their office, and we'll try to figure those pieces out. But the idea is that the goal is to start having meetings in district with the member, with their staff, and with you there kind of taking the lead on how the conversation goes.
So I think that now we're going to launch into what the slide that we see here. So I'll just read it and then explain it to make sure we're clear. So who in Congress do you have a relationship with is the question. It would be helpful if everyone on the call can chime in on this. So asking you to use the question box, not the chat box, because that doesn't create a record, so we want to make sure that we have a record on all this. If you could rate on a scale of 0 to 5, so 0 would be no relationship at all, 5 would be you're on a first-name basis and have a great relationship with. And we're asking you to do this for each of your members of Congress, so that would be your 2 senators and your House member, but then also going a little bit broader because you may be in a district, but folks from another district are coming into your office. So any representative that you have a relationship with, if you could just let us know using the question box, 0 to 5, how good of a relationship you have. So just for an example, someone from Hawaii, Dennis Oshiro, chimed in, which I appreciate, and said, Hawaii, Senator Hirono 5, Senator Schatz 3, Rep. Takai 0, Rep. Gabbard 1. So obviously they have Rep. Takai is their rep, and they don't have a relationship with, but they have something of a relationship with Rep. Gabbard. So if everyone could just chime in with those. I don't know if we want to move on and just let people do that as we continue talking, or if you want to give it a minute, Bruce.
You know, I think we'll keep rolling, but we have the link of the GovTracker. So
GovTrack.us.
Yeah, if you want to refresh your memory on who's in your area, then you can use that. We sent that out earlier this morning, and that might help you identify the names. So, very interested, especially if you've got some Republican relationships, but you know, we are interested in everybody that you've got. So let's not do any dead air time. So we're going to jump on to the next topic, but please feel free, and maybe we should, Matthew, help us remember to remind us that people should continue working on these during the course of the call. One of the things that when we first started doing this kind of work 4 or 5 years ago, we would sometimes hear from counseling agencies, well, I can't do that because I'm a 501c3. And in fact, 501c3 regulations do permit groups to do lobbying, and lobbying is when you advocate legislation with an elected official or an administrative official, and it's a very specific activity that can be kind of clearly defined. And when we, there's a group called Alliance for Justice, which is a group that has developed a specialty in what nonprofits can do in the lobbying field, and what's education versus what's lobbying, how to track it, all those kinds of things. They did a workshop for us 3.5 years ago in Baltimore. We had that, some of you were there, I'm sure. We had that one meeting for advocates in the housing counseling world. It was before the National Housing Resource Center had ever been formed, though it helped start us, actually. They did an hour-long session there that I thought was pretty good. And the question here is, are people comfortable with doing lobbying, or would they like to get some kind of an orientation from this group? And it might be that it's a couple webinars. I remember that they spent an hour with us and felt like they needed a little bit more time as well. So if there's no need for it, that's great to know. It's an expensive thing to do, but we're very interested in making sure that groups feel comfortable doing this kind of work and what they can and can't do. So let us know what you'd like. So answer is, if you want the webinar, just vote yes, and if no, just vote no. Okay, well, so, and can you tell, so 91% said yes, so 1 no, and can you tell how many people actually voted? Is that easy to tell, Matthew? No?
It's in the ballpark of 30.
30, okay, good. Well, that's a constituency, good. Okay, well then let's pursue it then. That's a done deal. All right, so let's go back to the agenda. So don't forget to continue figuring out who in the House and Senate you have relationships with and putting them in the question box. So we're ready to move on to the 97% LTV product. Okay, it looks like we might have a screen snafu here, but I'm gonna keep working on the list here. So we've talked about this before, but I wanted to spend a little bit of time on the 97% product. Is something we're going to do a fair amount of work on in the upcoming next few months. And so Fannie and Freddie have both adopted a new 97% LTV product. It makes them competitive with FHA and no longer requires that you have to put at least 5% down. And there had been talk that there would be a counseling requirement, and but in fact there isn't one. So for Freddie Mac, what they require currently is that they require education and not counseling. And specifically, they permit online education by mortgage insurers. They single that one out. And they allow their Credit Smart program, which is a self-study program, which is not personalized and tends to be on the very basic side. Those are all tools that Freddie would permit. So it doesn't really guide people to counseling on any level at all. Under Fannie Mae, they require education and counseling, but only if you're getting a My Community mortgage. And you can also get the 97% product with non-My Community mortgage loans. And in that case, there's no counseling requirement. And I asked Fannie, well, how is the decision made about whether you go to a My Community mortgage or whether you go to a non-My Community mortgage product? And they said Fannie doesn't tell lenders what products they should use. It's all up to the lender. So if a lender's not committed to counseling, then they can simply guide people away. So as far as we can see, there's really not a standard that would anywhere say that people would be getting consistently counseled under these programs. There's also a little interesting issue around oh, and just let me add one more thing on the Fannie Mae piece too. So in terms of what the counseling requirement is for My Community mortgages, the counseling requirement is actually that you adhere to the national industry standards for homeownership education and counseling, and that the education and counseling is provided by a third party that's independent of the lender. So there's no requirement that they be a HUD-approved housing counseling agency, but that they have to meet the national industry standards. And we'll talk about this just in a minute, but let me just give you one more piece, and then we'll talk about sort of the question that I've got. To be interested in what people's thoughts are. But first, so this question about the independent third party is pretty interesting. So here's Freddie on the independence question. So they said you don't have to be an independent third party. Homeownership education must be provided by a party not involved in the sale or financing of the property. If provided by the originating lender or the seller, the homeownership education must be conducted by someone not directly involved in the loan origination, processing, or approval process. So you could have, your company could have a financial stake in the loan product. The originator who's actually doing the origination couldn't do the counseling, but they could get somebody else in their office to do it. Stepping back from this for a moment, so we are going to go to FHFA and ask them to institute a counseling requirement. And we've heard from the grapevine that this is certainly part of their conversation. That's not necessarily a closed door, that there's a possibility. When we've heard that both from Fannie and from FHFA, so that we have a good shot at getting this if we do this well. Here's the question that I've got for you all. It turns out that if you look at the universe of groups that are doing housing counseling, there's a large group of organizations that are HUD-approved housing counseling agencies. That's many of them, and you could probably safely say most, but it's certainly not all. There's also a population of groups that have adopted the national industry standards, and they're it's a smaller universe than the HUD-approved housing counseling agencies, but they don't all overlap. So there are some agencies that have adopted the industry standards and are not HUD-approved, and at the same time, they're HUD-approved agencies that have not adopted the HUD standards. That have not adopted the national industry standards. So here's the question. And we're not going to put this up for a poll or anything like that. I think this is more of a nuanced, I'd be interested in what people's thinking is. So if you go to Massachusetts, Maryland, Pennsylvania, there are, and I'm sure it's in other states as well, there are networks of groups that are not HUD approved, that are funded largely through the housing finance agencies or through local governments or both. And they have adopted the national industry standards. And the word of mouth is that they're doing pretty good work. So if we did the HUD-approved housing counseling agency standard, those groups would get cut out. Conversely, if we did the national industry standards, there are a range of housing counseling groups that have not adopted the national industry standards. Largely, it's a question of expense and training staff and making your systems align. And so there's some very large groups that haven't done it, and some smaller groups that haven't done it. So the question is, what should we argue with to FHFA? So we could argue just do HUD-approved housing counseling agencies. We could argue do the industry standards, or we could argue an either-or model, which is sort of unusual, but not impossible. I'm interested in what people think about it. One of the arguments against using the industry standards that I had heard in the past had been that the industry standards do not require you to be a nonprofit. Now, I looked at the list in selected states, and all the organizations that were listed, I'm pretty sure, are nonprofits. And talking with others, that's what I've heard as well. And I think the idea is that for-profits could adopt the standards in terms of the content, but not in terms of the ethics standards, which preclude you from having a financial stake in the deal. So that's kind of a little aside to this. So kind of a lengthy thing, but what I'd like you to do is, if you've got an opinion about whether it should be HUD approved, or whether it should just be the national industry standards, or whether it should be both, just put it into the what's the correct term? The question box. And and if you've got some thoughts about it, I'm very interested in hearing that as well.
And maybe while there's a few related questions, maybe I'll
Okay.
raise those while folks chime in. The first is, can we develop a partnership with local lenders to have their clients sent to a HUD-approved housing counseling agency?
Well, the short answer is yes, you could do that at any time, and boy, that's certainly been the bread and butter of some of the groups that have had the most success, has been creating good, predictable channels of communication and referral from lenders that have a high standard for what the preparation of the client would be.
All right. Someone else, well, they said their agency is both HUD approved and has adopted the national industry standard, but thought that HUD was going to be adopting the national industry standard sometime in the future, and wanted to know if that was the case. If you know anything about that.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, I know that there was some discussion about that. I have not heard about it recently, so I don't have anything new to say about that. It's you'd think that it would have happened by now if they were going to do it, but I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that in a while.
Okay. And one other question. Does this mean that if I develop a property for sale, I cannot have my housing counselors provide counseling and training? We're able to do this now by providing a disclosure statement.
So this is great. Thank you for bringing that up. And this is exactly the kind of issue that we have to figure out. So the HUD standard, which actually was developed partly in because of my old organization that I used to work with, is that if you are a builder and you're a nonprofit community development corporation, you build houses, there was a time in the housing at HUD where if you read the rules strictly, you weren't allowed to provide the housing counseling for the buildings that your agency was building. And that didn't seem to be, it's like the best solution if you're a nonprofit. So as the person quite rightly said, that there are two elements to this. You need to do disclosure, and the counseling needs to be done by a separate staff from the people who market the properties. And so and that seems to be a very workable solution, and it's not an area that there's been lots of problems in our world. And so I think that's the kind of thing that we would be supportive of. HUD has already got that incorporated. We need to look at what it looks like, how this is described. It's, the National Industry Standards has the same sets of issues, so I'm pretty interested in seeing how they manage that question. But I don't know off the top of my head what the answer is to that.
All right, I'm just going to run quickly through the responses we've got. So we've got both. We've got should be a nonprofit that is HUD approved minimally, but prefer both. Both HUD approved. Both as long as no one associated with lenders is allowed. Should be both HUD approved and national standards. HUD approved, but also okay with either or. Both HUD and national standards. HUD approved.
You know, I'm worried we're going to run out of time here,
Okay.
So that gives us a flavor. We'll take this all into account. This will be part of a dialogue that will be going on for probably a few days still. Good.
Great.
Okay. Always very helpful. Why don't we move on? So here's just a very quick thing. It's another poll. So we continually get asked, are agencies deeply involved in delinquency, and is pre-purchase taking over delinquency work or not? So as an experiment, let's try to do this quick poll. And the idea is, if you're doing identify where your largest portion of your agency work is. If it turns out that you're like an even balance between pre-purchase and delinquency, you can check both. But let's just try to get a sense of where the bulk of our business is. When I take the poll right now, the choices are pre-purchase, delinquency, rental, reverse mortgage, and other. And put in the question box if we left out something so major that we missed the boat on something.
There are 8% of people so far have said others. So if you folks want to give us an idea of what that folks that are answering other, what it is.
Oh, Matthew, you get early returns. That's pretty cool. Okay. Well, I think that's enough time, don't you think? And wow. Oh, look at that. Even draw, pre-purchase and delinquency, almost completely even. Fascinating. But rentals got a healthy 17%, reverse mortgage 2%, and then the other 9%, so shoot us if you think that there should be another category on that list, shoot us something in the question box about it. This has been a very interactive and helpful call, so thanks a lot for all this. So let's go to one more activity. So as you all know, settlements have been a major part of our work for the last 2.5 years, and we've seen an improvement in the quality of the settlements on paper, And the real question is, are we seeing an improvement on some of these key issues in the field as well? And so we've had 3 major settlements this past year, all of which have a serious principal reduction component. And the frustrating part about this is that we've not been hearing a lot about people actually getting these principal reductions. And one of the issues that we always raise with the monitors and with the institutions doing the settlement is that years ago there was the old Countrywide Bank of America settlement, and which had principal reductions, and counselors saw very few of those deals. So when I'd be with a group of 20 or 30 counselors, I'd ask if anybody had seen any of these deals, and one person might raise their hand, and they'd only seen one when they had 200 Countrywide clients. The room probably had 1,000 clients altogether. And what was happening? Well, the lender was making that decision on their own, and they were doing it as an accounting decision, and probably were choosing much more suburban and more expensive properties just to get it off their books quickly. Nothing driven by need. So here's what we would like: is if you have had principal reductions that you've seen by Chase, by Bank of America, or Citi in the past 6 months, just put that in the chat box. I'm sorry, put it in the question box, and Chase. And if you've got more than one, what the number is. But if you've seen them with any of these 3 institutions, we'd be very, very interested, because those would be driven directly by the settlement, and we'd start seeing some movement on this. Okay.
So folks are starting to weigh in. A few people have said no. We've had one person say Chase, one say Bank of America, at least 2 from Bank of America, 2 for Chase. That's all we've got so far. A big one from B of A. None.
Okay. Well, I'll be interested to see where these were geographically, and and if it turns out that these were not in the heart of the city, but in a more middle-class neighborhood or something, that'd be interesting to know as well. So it's we're arguing that this all should be driven by need and by the counselor being able to nominate their cases to the settlement process, to the principal reduction process.
So one interesting response, a counselor friend told me about one she received from B of A where the client didn't even ask for it. They sent it directly to the client without solicitation.
That's exactly it. That's what we're talking about. That's from the settlement.
Another one, a large dollar amount in a suburban area. A big one from B of A in the Hudson Valley.
Hudson Valley. Wow.
Albany, a big one from B of A.
Interesting. Okay. Well, all very helpful. Good. So we're right at the end here, and this has been a very productive call. Thank you, everybody. We are want to encourage people to join NHRC. We're continuing to do great work. We now have a new set of webinars that are around compliance issues that are done in conjunction with HUD and Teresa Bardwell. It's available to members. We are doing, we still have the discounts. The price has gone up a little bit. It's $13.30 per credit for a tri-merge credit report, but still well below market. We have a variety of other programs. We have now a very robust members page with or resource page, which has access to all these Federal Home Loan Bank programs and escalation charts at different lenders and a variety of very useful tools. Right before so please consider joining in 2015. The membership form is on our website, and we encourage contributions to be based on your size of your organizational budget, just for the housing counseling side of the budget, and you'll see the chart on the form. So you can find that at www.hsgcenter.org. So one quick note for February, because of some scheduling challenges, so we will be doing the second and fourth Thursday of the month rather than the first and third, following the pattern in January. You can let us know if it makes a difference to you, one set or the other. That's one more thing. You could shoot us either an email or put it into the question box if it matters to you. We thought keeping it consistently at 1 o'clock on Thursday was a better alternative to having to do it on a different day because we couldn't do it on the first Thursday. Okay, well, this has been a very helpful call, and again, I really appreciate the commitment everybody shows to this kind of work and to us help trying to figure out the advocacy thing. Matthew's going to be in touch with some of you about all this political work that needs to be done in the district, and please, I know you'll be responsive to him. This can be fun and exciting, but also really, really builds important bridges for our work. Have a good time in the next 2 weeks, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.